All right, welcome back. So here is the question of the week. And if you want to submit a question, go to PAFOW.net. You'll be able to submit a question there. And this is an aggregation of a variety of questions I've received recently. What is the biggest challenge you see in people analytics today, particularly given remote work, COVID, what's happening with Black Lives Matter, the calls for social justice, better equity among diverse groups, the LGBTQ community? So with that, I'm going to actually pick three things because I'm not going to be able to pick just one. The world is too complex to package it in that way. But I'm going to put it in these three buckets. And even here is a stretch just to get it down to these three. It's empathy, capacity, and elasticity. So the first word is probably familiar to you. We need better empathy given what's happening with the social unrest that's happening here in the United States. Capacity alludes to what's happening with people in remote work, working at home. And elasticity is probably a new construct that I want to introduce. And I'm going to draw a parallel with agility. But there are some distinctions which I believe will be of value to you. So let me explain. First off, it's underappreciated when we do workforce planning, when historically we have done people analytics, that we as human beings are all constrained by what? We're constrained by time. And the fact that we don't acknowledge that systematically, I think, has hurt a lot of people. In other words, we'll just throw work at people and they will figure it out. They'll prioritize, they'll be resourceful, they'll do what they need to do to get it done. What has happened, and there's some part of that makes sense, and I'll get to that in a minute. However, what has also happened is that people have compromised their health and well-being. They've compromised their relationships. They've compromised a lot of their interest, and so at the end of the day, well-being has been compromised to a great extent. Now, this is becoming more acutely problematic, particularly given that people are working in their homes. And there's much data that's coming out that's showing that people are working longer. They're actually having more meetings. They're getting more to-dos coming out of these meetings. So at the end of it, where are the boundaries? Who sets the boundaries? Is it the individual? Is it the organization? Can we elevate our level of empathy around what is actually going on? And can we plan the size of the workforce and what people do and how they do it accordingly? Many have thrown their hands up at this challenge and said, it's too complex. We don't have the right data. Again, people just figure it out. And I have, frankly, personally, a problem with that. I think there needs to be boundaries set by both the organization and individuals and team leaders. So throughout the organization, which brings me to this next slide, where if we're thinking about agility or empathy or elasticity or any of the constructs that I mentioned, we have to think about individuals. So the personal dimension, the team dimension, the group dimension, and the organization. And of course, we can kick out some other dimensions, but right now I'm talking about groups of people. And so with this in mind, when we look at how much work a team needs to undertake to get a project done, are we taking a people first approach where, okay, here's what needs to get done, here's the people we have, we're going to do the best we can, and if stuff falls off, we will just deal with it, and hopefully, by definition, if it falls off, it wasn't a priority. There's a whole host of risks in that, and I don't have to say those explicitly. However, what I will say is this: what would it be like if we can actually be more planful and understand the limitations that people have up front? For example, do they have three kids between the ages of 3 and 8 running around the house? And they're not only parenting, but they're teaching, they're facilitating remote learning. Maybe they have an elder parent in the house that they're taking care of. What are these real constraints in life that people are undertaking that they have to deal with in addition to their work? Similarly, what's their bandwidth speed? Can it be up to be more efficient and effective? Is that data being collected? Is there an option to go to a remote work site that's honors social distancing, that safer? And as we talk about the future of work, this is certainly something that's emerging. What I'm ultimately getting at is that we have to be more creative in designing how work gets done. We cannot do the approach that we've done historically. The good news is we don't have to. And this is where I want to land with this segment. And this is from the book Adaptive Space by Michael Arena, which I think actually holds a lot of merit in this remote work environment. And there's certainly details. And he and I did a podcast together, which I highly, highly recommend a while back. But again, it pre-COVID, but I still think it applies. And let me walk you through this real quick. We have pockets of entrepreneurial activity that we have these ideas being generated. And on the other end of the spectrum, we have these operational systems that are just keeping the machine moving forward. And how do we bring those together in this adaptive space to create new ways of working? So if we apply this to people strategy and analytics for a minute, we have these legacy processes in place. We have all these great ideas that are being offered up, some generated internally, some externally. How do we get into this adaptive space and create the new normal? This is what is required. And I'm not seeing, frankly, many companies create this adaptive space. Not as many as I would like. On the other side of the coin, there are organizations that are doing exactly that. These groups have been spun up that are multifunction groups, from operations to facilities to HR to IT, have actually gotten together and started to create how we do workforce planning, how we do people strategy in a very systematic, new, innovative way. So I certainly celebrate you think about this concept of adaptive space, particularly as we meet the key business challenges, again, of empathy and capacity. Time is limited. And finally, this idea that elasticity is that we ebb and flow as an organization, and as individuals even. Sometimes we work more, sometimes we work less. We go like this. And are we creating the environment where we can actually flex like that? So certainly more to come on that. So we're going to take a short break, and we're going to talk about that very notion of people strategy and how to bring it to life.